actually in the Twitter, in the live feed. Avery, can you check whether the live feed is working? Because so far I'm not seeing anybody here, and it would be a shame if we live cast this to nobody. So let's actually verify. We can do this by viewing ourselves. Oh, you see, it does say we're live here, and we are. So far, yep. I'm not seeing anybody here. Okay, so we are definitely live, and there are 9 people here. So we're, I think we're in business, and now there are 14. So we're gonna get started. But before we do, I want to actually send a note with our live stream to the person whose work we are featuring. So I'm going to do something I never do, which is go on Instagram, and I'm going to send a note to our special guest today, and there it is done. And so we are now live at the Russian Embassy's Cultural Center. You can even see it down there. It says Russian Cultural Center on the wall. They did not expect us here tonight, and the evidence for that is that the wall is completely dark, which is why we have such a great image. It is why we have no light against the wall at all. You notice that they are completely unprepared for this. There's no, so you can see, I'll show you around the walls are completely dark. And we have a great shot here at the at displaying Andrei Gupsa's work. I want to tell you a little bit about Andrei Gupsa, who is, I learned about actually on Twitter because somebody was sharing the work that he has been doing on Instagram. Andrei is a digital artist in Kharkiv. He is has been doing for some time now pictures in which he divides the image in half, and half of the image is the way something looks now, and half of the image is the way it looked before. These are very arresting images and were even before the full-scale military invasion began. But as you can imagine, they became all the more so after the full-scale invasion began, and buildings started getting destroyed. So for those of you who want to follow him, he is more on Instagram than anywhere else. So please follow him on Instagram at Gupsik. You can also support his work. Like many Ukrainian artists right now, you can support his work by going to PayPal later, and you can support him directly there. There is also a magazine that we will show you later on. And then after we do this slideshow, we are going to have some fun with the NAFO fellas who have been sending me stuff for this projection op. So we're going to do some serious stuff, and then we're going to have some fun with trolling. All right, let's start with the first slide. I'm going to assume that things are a little bit hard for you guys to read. So these are, in all of these images, the bright red line separates the old from the new. This was Kharkiv in 1943 and modern right next to, sort of adjacent to one another. And so these are, the first few of these images are World War II images set against modern images. Yeah, whenever I pause, Avery. So here is and again, you can see these bright pink lines separate the modern from the old. Again, this is a World War II image, 1921 versus 1941. This is Kharkiv, Constitution Square, again, 1941 versus earlier this year. And now, of course, all of this reminds us at the Russian Cultural Center of the last time Ukraine was invaded, which was, of course, by the Nazis. Okay, so now we are in the modern period, and this is the Cherniv Hotel, where he has given a notation. I will read it. These are the dates here. In this case, June 24th is the date on which he posted these. I don't know the dates of the image being taken. Yeah, so this one is a very arresting and upsetting image. This was a modern shopping center in Mariupol, and he writes, this was the largest shopping center in the city with hundreds of shops, dozens of cafes, restaurants, fast food. The best cinema in Mariupol were all in it. Residents loved to spend their time here with the whole family, and you can see in the reflection what it looked like before. So the water reflection and the bombed out version of it is casting the reflection. And so here there's a series of these where this is in Irpin in Kiev Oblast, where the reflection is the modern image, and the child casting it is no longer there. This is in Vinnytsia on the morning of July 14th. Explosions thundered in crowded center of Vinnytsia. 50 cars were burned, civilians, buildings were damaged, and dozens of people were killed, including children. There's no military facility at the site. Oops, go back. And the Vinnytsia City Council declared July 15th, which is the date of this posting, as a day of mourning. And Andrei writes that the photo is my offer of condolences to the residents of Vinnytsia. And again, so the reflection here is what you see before the bombing, and the actual image casting the reflection is the modern image. And of course, all of this is being cast on top of the Russian Cultural Center as a reflection of modern Russian culture. Yeah, so this is a school in Kramatorsk in the Donetsk region, which is, of course, currently is currently being contested. And again, you can see the parts that are new and the parts that are recently destroyed. Okay, so this is in Kharkiv. I love this particular image, the way that the building structure is still evident in both sides, but in one it's one color, and in the other it's burned out. All right, this is July 31st. So he writes about. So this is looks like maybe the train station in Mariupol, which the entirety of the city has now been destroyed, and This is the District House of Culture. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that this live stream is actually working properly. Yeah, so somebody is tweeting at me that it's working. So I'm going to take on faith that it's working. And I think what I'm also going to do is, because I think more people will see it on Twitter, is I'm going to actually try to go live on Twitter at the same time. Can I use, let's see, yeah, I think I can do that. Let's run the risk and try here. Worst that'll happen is we get cut off and it doesn't work. And you know, it's a special military operation. It's what's the worst that can happen? Okay, so we are connecting. Go live on Twitter. So we are now live on Twitter. But one thing that this means is that I am now staring up, in addition, which makes it very hard to read as well as to. So what I'm going to do is sit down here. So just give me a second, guys. So if you're joining us on Twitter, first of all, I strongly recommend you use the YouTube feed. I know there are more of you on Twitter, but boy, the image is better on YouTube. But, all right, you guys do what you want. We are featuring today the work of Andrei Gupsa, an artist in Kharkiv who does images of buildings both before and after, within the same image, their destruction by Russian forces. This is the District House of Culture. You know, this is a very hard word for me to pronounce. Okhtikra, I'm sure I mangled that, from August 23rd. This is the Mykolaiv Regional State Administration, and it's a gorgeous, horrifying picture in which on either side you see what the building used to look like, and in the middle you see what it looks like now. This is a manor. I don't know Kniga's manor. Kniga, I think, means book. I don't know how to interpret that, but it's in Trotsnayetsk, also from August 23rd. And you can see it's a quite stately manor house that is no longer a stately manor house. This is the regional drama theater in Mariupol, and as you can see, we have another picture of this lower down. But as you can see, this is a really quite beautiful building that is now in ruins. This is the Central House of Culture in Irpin, and again, the left half of it is quite beautiful, and the right half of it is quite destroyed. So like a lot of buildings in Kharkiv, the Regional State Administration building has been shelled, and you can see on the left what it looked like, and on the right what it looks like now. So this is the train station in Okhtirka, also from August 23rd. I particularly like what he did here of sort of making a very jagged line of the destruction. It's not a neat separation. This one's a neater separation. Regional Library for Children in Cherniv. It looks like it may have used to have been a church. Hard to know. In any event, it is no longer serving as a regional library. I just want to, before I go on, direct your attention to the bottom of the screen, which shows the name of the building that we're projecting against, the Russian Cultural Center. The Russian Cultural Center is part of the embassy, and we thought today we would bring you some elements of modern Russian culture, what it actually means in practice for Ukrainians. This is whether it is filtration camps that the United States government talked about yesterday at the UN, whether it's bombings of buildings and destruction of cities like this, whether it is the murder of large numbers of civilians, the murder of prisoners of war. Russia likes to portray itself as the country of Pushkin and Dostoevsky. Right now, when you have a building in Washington, D.C. called the Russian Cultural Center, it seemed to me important to bring Andrei Gupta's work to it to show you what Russian culture functionally means for a lot of Ukrainians, which is destruction. This image is particularly upsetting to me because it's actually a museum of local history in Ivankiv. There's nothing special about the building, but there is something special about the material inside the building that has been destroyed. And this is happening all over, particularly eastern and southern Ukraine, but it's happening elsewhere too. Just a note on museums and museum preservation. If you're interested in helping Ukrainian museums preserve and protect historical artifacts and the sort of cultural patrimony of the country, you might check out the work that the Shadows Project is doing. I had a lengthy discussion on the Lawfare podcast with Katerina Bukatsky, who has been a part of previous special military operations. She helps run that work for them, and they're helping a lot of museums bury artifacts, put them in safe protective gear, and I think helping them preserve collections. This is the Department of National Police in Kharkiv. The rebuilding of government infrastructure is going to be one of the huge challenges. And again, what this building used to look like on the left and does now look like on the right. So I wish the DC City Council had a building that looked like the Regional Council building in Freedom Square in Kharkiv. It's maybe a bit on the imperial side, but it was a pretty impressive building, and now it is not. So this was posted on June 8th with the caption, "Last night and this morning in Kharkiv." The sign says Vostort supermarket, so it's just a Vostorg. It's just was a supermarket. Obviously no military purpose to it. You can see the fresh fish sign, obviously fresh fish of deep danger to the Russian military. So Kiev has not been spared. This is, Andrei posted this on March 29th. This is, it's not just old buildings that have been destroyed, it's a lot of modern architecture as well. This is the Retroville shopping center. Again, just a shopping center. Again in Kiev in March. more office buildings in Kharkiv, a regional drama theater in Mariupol. This is a hospital. Volnovakha Central District Hospital. Andrei shot this or posted it in March. It's very hard to understand blowing up a hospital. It's not, as you can see, it's not like closely. There's no, tanks in front of it. There's nobody. This is not a military site. This is a specialized school in Kharkiv, or at least it was. So this is in Bucha. For those who don't know, Bucha was the site of a real brutal set of murders and massacres of civilians. It is a suburb of Kiev, we haven't really talked much about the damage to property in places like Bucha because the killings of people were so horrific, but it has not been spared. Okay, so this the Mria was one of the largest aircraft in the history of the world. I'm not sure whether it was actually larger than the Spruce Goose or whether it ever actually flew. I'm not sure of the history of it, but it was destroyed. Not that it was going to run bombing missions over Russia, but it was, at this point, a piece of aviation history, now also destroyed. So Andrei writes that this is an architectural monument that was built in Kharkiv in 1911, so it's actually pre-Soviet, kind of early example of kind of an interesting modernist architecture, clearly residential in character. So this is the airport in Nikolaev, for those of us who live in the Washington area, it bears a curious resemblance to Dulles Airport, and I suspect probably dates from a similar period, maybe a little bit later. Andrei writes that this is Prospect Mira in Mariupol, and he writes that I really like this building and it's worth restoring to its original state. Has a kind of an interesting Bauhausy look to it, or at least it did, and you can see the dead tree next to it in contrast to the quite beautiful lush trees that it clearly used to be. So this one's a little bit more in the triumphant department. So this is the Moskva, the Russian warship, flagship of the Black Sea Fleet, in flames. I think that was a little bit impish on Andrei's part. So this clearly used to be a covered shopping center, and you can see what it used to look like with the plush stuffed animals and what it looks like now, with the roof no longer there. This is the railway station in Mariupol. Again, there are very few buildings standing in Mariupol, and it's very hard to understand Huge numbers of people from that area have been deported into Russia. It's very hard to imagine how that is going to be rebuilt, how the people are going to be recovered. You have some number of millions, maybe, of people from these areas of Ukraine who have now been deported to Siberia and other less than entirely habitable areas of, or not desirable areas to live in Russia. So this is a track, a football, a soccer stadium with a running track around it, and I assume it was shot with a drone. It is named for Yuri Gagarin, who is the first man in space and a kind of hero of the Soviet Union. Interestingly, that did not stop the Russians from destroying it. So this is what must have been a very beautiful hotel with a restaurant in the ground floor that you can see what happened to it. Similarly, here's another house of culture. This one in Mariupol. So this is that same building we saw from a different side in Prospect Mira in Mariupol, and this is a different side of the building. Another, this I guess used to be a house of culture and became a kind of humanitarian headquarters, which people, sought aid. It's in Kharkiv Oblast, and of course, that is also something to destroy. So Andrei writes about this. This is an apartment building that people are returning in large numbers to Kharkiv, but not everyone has a home to go to now. There is already a very serious housing crisis, and the more territory that the Ukrainians reclaim, the more people go home, which is a good thing. The less obvious it is going to be where they are to live. So we're coming to the end here. I think this is an incredibly powerful picture of President Zelensky. I'm just going to let it sit here for a second on the Russian Cultural Center. And Andrei writes, President of Ukraine before and after the invasion changed? ? April 7th. So this is a picture of Andrei Gupsa. If you want to support his work, you can do so on PayPal at gupsik@gmail. You can follow him on Instagram at Gupsik. And he has produced a magazine of these various, a kind of art magazine of the war to support artistic and humanitarian efforts. It is called Nenka, and there is information on his Instagram page about how to get access to that. All right, so that brings us to the end of our first presentation. And I thought that, because our first presentation was kind of heavy, it's important to be heavy about this. I don't, I really don't want to pretend that it's a less dire subject than it is. That said, I also I also, always want the special military operations to be in a spirit of some fun. Sorry, I'm trying to get up our next thing here, and talking and doing these things at the same time can be hard. So I'm, I wanted to lighten it up. I've been really enjoying the work of NAFO, the North Atlantic Fellows Association, and so I thought I would have the NAFO Fellows join me for this live projection operation, sending in these memes, delightful, enchanting, silly, mean, heartwarming stuff that they do. And I would just show them to you. And so while I'm doing this, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through these. I'm going to run through them pretty fast. And then I'm going to switch to Twitter. See, I got my Twitter up here. And so if you want, we're going to go, so if you have NAFO memes that you want the Russian Cultural Center to wake up in the morning and see, send them to me. Just tweet them at NAFO, at the hashtag NAFO projection op, and I will be following. I'm not going to follow it because I'm going to be sitting here scrolling through these and talking to you. But then when I'm done, I'm going to turn to it, and we're just going to be flooded with NAFO projection op. So in each of these cases, I've included who these are from. They're not necessarily the people who created them. They're the people who tweeted them at me. And so if you see a meme or a fella and you say, wait a minute, I did that. That's not from so-and-so. My apologies. I source all of these to how I got them, who sent them to NAFO projection op, and I cannot sort out manufacture of them. So April Sparkles sent in a lot of them. Some of them are, I've had to be selective with all of these, a lot of people, about which ones I've chosen. So for those who, for whom NAFO is bewildering, I have to say, I am with you. These memes started showing up out of nowhere. So this one, I had a little bit of involved in. This one was from one of our last projection operations. This is where two little girls put sunflowers down, and a member of the staff of the Russian embassy came out and kicked them. This really happened, and the only thing about this that is not accurate is the presence of the fella walking down the street when it happened. It's poetic license. It's awesome, and this is NAFO. This is. So for those of you who are new to this, what happened is that a group of people around the world, it started, I believe, with an artist who goes under the handle Kama Camellia, and started responding to Russian disinformation online with these memes, most of which feature the dog, and not all, but most, and used it to raise money for the Georgian Legion. Some of these are really beautiful. They can be hard to make out the degree of detail on the wall. I will be making both of these slideshows available. I love this one a great deal. And they started tweeting them both to raise money for the Georgian Legion, but also as a way of responding to Russian disinformation, and it proliferated. And more people began declaring themselves fellas, joining the North Atlantic Fellas Association, producing memes and sharing them. Some of them are mocking, trolling. Some of them are, like this one, just moving images. A lot of them feature the dog. And a lot of them are ironic. I would particularly appreciate it if people could grab good screenshots of this great Russian culture image sitting on top of the Russian Cultural Center. Avery is going to do that, so we're going to pause here. In fact, I'm going to move the projector ever so slightly so that the great Russian culture is visible there. There we go. Oops, it slid back. The flag is protecting Russian culture from the ignominy that it currently deserves. All right. Not sure where Avery went. I think he went to get a better image on this. Going to give him just a second. As you guys all know, these images, these special military operations are highly improvisational, and we sometimes pause for things like this because Avery goes to get a good picture. And he's back. Look at that. All right, so to at April Sparkles 1, this is, I think, maybe the image of the day. Great Russian culture on top of the Russian Cultural Center. Thank you for sending it. Also love this one. So a lot of people sent images of their particular fellas. And I love that. And I want to pause over this one. This is Congressman Adam Kinzinger, who I believe is watching this evening. Representative Kinzinger is, I think I want to say this, one of the people in Congress who truly understands the relationship between democracy protection in the form of U.S. support for Ukraine and democracy protection at home. And I think there is an important seamless web between his views of this subject and his work on this subject and his work on the January 6th committee. There is a relationship between democracy protection in all of its forms. And I don't think it's an accident that he affiliated himself with NAFO. And Avery tells me that he is here, and I'm honored to have him here. So I thought I would just include a bunch of images of the fellas that people sent. So I really, I have no idea how Claretta Nihuis pronounces her name, but she sent in a number of really wonderful ones, of which that one is among my favorites. And this one, look, I love the Crimea oops jokes. They're just, they never stop being funny. The Russians on the beach who are just outraged that their vacation was ruined. I want to pause over this. This was clearly made for this event. Idi Nahui means go fuck yourself. And it's actually it's untranslatably coarse. I really appreciate whoever M. Blech for sending this in and sharing it with us. I thought it really gets the spirit of what we're about this evening. All right, yes, so let's talk about this image for a minute because a lot of Russians are convinced that NAFO is a CIA operation. And I want to address that concern because I've dealt with the CIA a lot over the years. You know, in my day job, I run Lawfare. We do a lot of work on intelligence, national security matters. That's what we're about. I've dealt with the CIA a lot. Look, they don't have a good sense of humor. This is not actually within their capacity. They're really good at a lot of things, but producing great memes, there's no agency less apt to produce a lot of really funny stuff than the CIA. Just saying. So yeah, a lot of great CIA jokes in these memes. Yeah, a lot of tractors stealing tanks or towing away tanks jokes. I love this one. I just do. A lot of you sent it to me, and it's great. It's just great. Kremlin bullshit at the Russian Cultural Center. Again, that could be the takeaway image of the day. A lot of people also sent me this one, the "We are lucky they are so fucking stupid" one. It is, as the person who coined the phrase at the beginning of the Trump administration, malevolence tempered by incompetence, I do have a certain spot in my heart for this. Yeah, so this one may be a little bit hard to see on the wall. I think it is a particularly excellent one. Again, not sure where it came from. I'm not sure if Danu 924A produced it. It is great. And to the army of meme dogs, I totally fucking salute you, because, making up this stuff is actually hard, and doing it in a way that takes the thing seriously, because, right, we gotta actually remember all the time that what this is about is genocide, and you want to be funny and catch people's attention, but also never forget that it's actually about something that in the most deepest sense is deadly serious. Yeah, so space, my God, it's full of fellas. Yeah, I really love this one too. Kherson, right now there's a lot of fighting in Kherson Oblast, and the battle for Kherson City is coming. It is, it's going to be a major point in the war, and we should all be keeping the people of Kherson in our thoughts. The fighting is getting close there. Yeah, so this is, this is NATO, and NAFO as NATO, and, we joke about it, but NATO is really important. And, when a group of defense ministers, when a group of democracies get together and decide to support another democracy, and to do it through the mechanisms and interoperability of a functional military alliance. It's an incredibly powerful thing, and we've had a demonstration of that. And so I love it that somebody, whether it was Claretta Niehuis or somebody else, I love it that somebody actually thought about creating a humorous image for that. This one's just badass. I again, no idea who made it. Yoren the Crow sent a bunch in. Okay, so I got to say a word about KY underscore painter, who I'm pretty sure did make these. So these appear to be actually, if they're not hand painted, I don't know what they are, how she's producing them, but they're pretty amazing, humorous, but also like exquisitely well painted. And I wanted particularly to include them because, honestly, the Russian Cultural Center needs a little bit of reminder of the sort of things that it should be doing. Painting, music. I guess this is your last view after being thrown down a well by a group of fellas. So cheerful fellow with a sunflower and a battle axe. And I think this one actually contains a really important message. It says, every time you block a fella, 10 more spawn. And I actually want to say a word about that because, ultimately, the fight against disinformation and NAFO is not merely an effort to support Ukraine, although it is an effort to support Ukraine. It's also an effort to crowdsource the problem of responding to disinformation. And, we often think about disinformation as a policy problem that we need government leadership to solve. And there's a lot of truth to that, of course. Government has a role, and platforms have a role, and content moderation has a big role. But there's the deep message of this meme is that ultimately, the health of an online ecosystem and an informational ecosystem is a crowdsourced project, and that one of the ways that you improve the health of an ecosystem is by spawning fellas, which we can take as a sort of loose term for creating engaged citizens of whatever country who are going to memify truth, who are going to make it fun to correct falsehood and tell the truth. And that's a project that is a part of modern citizenship. And I think whoever made this, I don't know if that's what they were intending to say, but it's what it says to me, and I think it's a really important message. Okay, so I confess, because I'm an old, I had to have one of my kids explain the "what air defense doing" meme to me. But for everybody who's younger than 52, who does not need that explained, it's there it is. There are a lot of "what air defense doing" memes coming out of NAFO. I love this one. I like the cartoon ones. I particularly like that this guy has a Z on his forehead. This is, by the way, the longest we have ever gone without the Russians shining a Z spotlight on or otherwise interfering. So I just want to say a little message to Ambassador Antonov, which is that you guys are losing your touch. it used to be we would come out here and you would be all over us with the Z spotlights and the V spotlights and the Russian flag. We've been going for like an hour now, and like there's no one here, so like
Wide open, right?
it's wide open. Fucking get on it, guys. All right. A lot of Russia is a terrorist state memes with cheerful dogs. Okay, so this is the one. Most of these I have not included the tweet on, but this one I did because this was made for Defense Minister of Ukraine, who responded to it with, I think, really the first ever government acknowledgement of a group of troll dogs that formed on a social media site as an army. And I just think this is an important little event in history, that this meme got created and generated official acknowledgement from the Ukrainian government. I love this one. I just, I think it stands for so much. And it has no words on it. And again, it is, I think, from KY Painter. And, these are amazing images. So this one's hard to see because of the flagpole stuck in the way. Yeah, Avery's trying to get a shot of it for the people who are on Twitter. Lots of, again, CIA jokes. Crimea jokes. The Crimea jokes never get old. All right, here we have another important idea that, NAFO bothers the Russians, and this idea that it lives free in the Russians' head. It is very similar in that regard to the special military operations that, it bothers them a lot when we do these. And one of the reasons that I, wanted to team up with NAFO is that it provokes a sort of similar angry reaction. The reaction to the, from Ambassador Ulyanov, I didn't pronounce this nonsense, is really very similar to the kind of angry reactions that we've gotten with these projection operations and other mischief, sunflower mischief and stuff. Super famous image that is just, you can't make this shit up. Captures so much. Again, I love it. Again here, capturing the rage that this produces, and I do encourage you all to tweet some of the images of these against the wall of the Russian Cultural Center. Share them. They are very worth your time, just in the amount of anger that they produce inside of Russia. Okay, the final group of slides. So generally speaking, the more complex an image is, the harder it is to project against a wall. So things with lots of text, I generally tried to avoid. But, the Attack'em cigarette ads are pretty great. It's very hard to not love them. So here they are, or at least some of them. Again, mixed in with here with Crimea beach jokes. Thank you for smoking. Toasting removes dangerous orcs. Okay, and that brings us to the end of the slideshow. So let's just check in on what has been going on Twitter with our while we've been doing this. Have people been sending stuff to the projection op? And the answer is not really. So, all right, we are going to wind things down here. I am going to call in to the Maria Report people before we shut down the live feed. So I will keep broadcasting on YouTube, but we're gonna stop the Twitter feed so that I can use my phone to call into the Maria Report and maybe show them some of the material that I've been showing you. All right. Should we? All right. I am signing off, and you are all great Americans, except the ones of you who are not Americans, who are great residents of other countries. Please do share screenshots. Please do support Andrei Gupsa, and we will be back with more special military operations in the weeks and months to come. Okay, guys, I am still here on the live feed on YouTube. I'm no longer streaming on Twitter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call into the Maria Report. So you will only be able to hear my side of this conversation. So my recommendation, if you want to stick with us, is to mute YouTube and not listen to this through YouTube, but to listen to it instead through the Maria Report, which is, live streaming on Twitter Spaces, as always, and they will pick up the information now. Filter through a couple of these. So, folks, if you're still here, I am waiting to join the Maria report. They seem to be getting a presentation in some detail, so this might be a little while. Okay, folks, just a little update here. We are just listening to the military update on the RIA report. We will, they will bring me on after that is done. So if you are still listening, my suggestion is go over to there and listen through there, because that will be the best way to hear both, both my side and their side. Okay, so I'm going to mute myself on this stream, so this will no longer produce sound. So you will only hear me if you are on. Actually, no, I'm going to leave this live, and but you will only hear me on this side. You won't hear any conversation that we have with our interlocutors there.
see if he'd let me speak on it? Thanks. It's not charging. Ben.
Yep. Ooh.
That's why.
Good catch. Yeah, so we've got a great camera today. I'm here with Avery Schmitz, my part of the Big Ass Projector crew. We've got some new stuff going on. We've got, first of all, a really good camera on this, and we've got a really good cooperation from the Russian government, who has not yet noticed that we're here. So the wall is completely dark other than our images. We have the Russian Cultural Center wall completely to ourselves. I assume eventually they're going to figure out that we're here and show up with the spotlights and stuff. But right now we have a free hand, and we just did on YouTube two slideshows. One, we're featuring the work of Andrei Gupsa, who is a Kharkiv digital artist who's done some incredible stuff on buildings before and after their destruction. And we also, in a more playful vein, featured the work of NAFO, many of whom, of course, are also RIA Report folks. So I'm happy to go through some of these slides with you if you guys want. The live stream on YouTube is still live, and so if you guys want to reprise either the Gupsa or the NAFO material, I'm happy to do that. Or we can, if you prefer, just talk about some of the stuff, and we may try to hit another site this evening. The ambassador's house seems kind of lonely. We were thinking maybe the back wall of the embassy, the press office, the trade mission. So we're kind of at your disposal. Happy to show slides. I mean, I do eventually want to go to bed, but yeah, exactly. We were simultaneously going on YouTube and on Twitter streaming, but we don't have the Twitter stream live anymore. But we do still have the YouTube stream live, and so I think a lot of what I'm going to say is going to be incomprehensible if you're not looking at the stream. And so I would encourage people to listen through this, because that way you get both sides of the conversation and you don't get the delay. But to watch the slides through the YouTube feed, and notice when you do that at the very bottom of the screen you will actually see the words Russian Cultural Center spelled like British or Canadian people And that is not from the slide. That is actually the sign on the door. All right, so I think a lot of the NAFO material you guys are actually already familiar with, but so I'm going to focus, at least at first, on Andrei Gupsa, whose work I noticed was floating around Twitter a little bit, and I went and he mostly works on Instagram, and I went over and looked at his work on Instagram. I was just kind of blown away by it. So I wrote to him and asked whether he would mind if I used his work in the course of a special military operation. He was very gracious about it. I do encourage people to follow him on Instagram if you're on Instagram. Also, if you want to support his work, you can send him, and he does a lot of work supporting artists in Ukraine. You can support all of it through his PayPal account, which is just goopsic at Gmail. The basic theme of his work is taking pictures of the same building and merging them at different times. So this first group of pictures are all pictures of modern Kharkiv buildings in both now, before the full-scale invasion, and during World War II. So on the left, this is Freedom Square building bombed out in Kharazin University during the German invasion. And on the right is the same building now. And in all of these photos, you'll see this bright pink line separating the image at the time from, before the destruction and after. So this is Kiev, the main train station in 1941 versus last year. And this is Constitution Square in Kharkiv in 1941 versus last year. So the first of these are World War II images, but now he turns to modern images of current destruction. And in these first few, you'll see the image in the reflection is the original building, and the image above the reflection, casting the reflection, or sometimes vice versa, is the destroyed building. So some of these have people in them, some of them don't. No problem. So some of these are heartbreaking images. Children playing in the reflection, bombed out cars in reality. Sorry.
I'd just like to add in briefly.
So this is Avery.
Sorry, yes, this is Avery. Thank you again for having both of us on. Ben, I think this is the maybe fourth or fifth specific special military operation that at least I've been here for in DC. And there's something to be said, for the gravity of seeing a lot of these images symbolically on the face of these Russian buildings. I think, though, this is a very special one, especially, with these specific images that are so artistically tasteful and are really beautiful pieces of art that are being shown on, a building that's supposed to be projecting, positive messages, supporting the arts, when in reality it's simply the presence of, an oppressive and genocidal regime in the United States. So, as we look through a lot of these images, recognizing that deeper uh, symbolic, nature of seeing them on a building like this, I think is really important.
Yeah, so the point is well taken. I should have started with why we're doing this at the Russian Cultural Center, and my feeling about Gupta's work is that we live in the neighborhood of the Russian Cultural Center, and that these images are modern Russian culture. This is you know on the left of each of these images, or on one part of these images, is Ukrainian life, and on the other side is Ruski Mir, and they represent in this building what the culture that the Putin regime wants you to think of as Russian culture. And so the thought behind this special military operation was to bring to this building the reality of Russian culture in Ukraine. Well, so I think it is one of the really interesting facts about these projection operations, how much the Russians hate them and how much energy they spend trying to prevent them or get in the way of them. And I'm kind of amazed we've been here almost 2 hours and they haven't shown up yet, which actually means that they haven't turned on Twitter. So I think the theory behind them is that first of all, it's very arresting to project images on the walls of embassies. It's legal, and I did a lot of work early in this process to establish that it was legal. That took a lot of testing things, because you can't just go ask. There's nobody to ask that question. No one's tried to do this before. And so we had to sort of figure out what we could and couldn't do. And the value of it is that it involves invading the embassy space, right? So that wall, if I ask them, hey, could I hang a picture of Russian war crimes, or the Department of National Police in Kharkiv destroyed by Russian artillery, can I hang a banner with that image from your ceiling? They would say, of course not. They probably wouldn't even take my call to address the question. But here I can do that without their permission. And there's something about that allows us to invade the space with our protest, but to do it in a fashion that respects U.S. obligations under the Vienna Convention, not to trespass on or offend Russians' diplomatic rights. And so it's partly it's a way of being as invasive and as humanly possible without actually violating U.S. law and having very carefully worked out the contours of what U.S. law will and won't tolerate. I think the Russians hate it because it is so invasive, and because we actually go into their space to do it. The other thing that it does is it causes the Russians to behave in the streets of Washington 1%, 0.5%, the way they behave at home. You know, we lay sunflowers, they come out and destroy the sunflowers. We project images of war crimes, they put spotlights with the Z symbol on top of the images of and I think there's a value, honestly, to getting them to show who they are. Now, I wish they would notice that we were here tonight. This is a little bit, it's almost insulting. We did all this work. We prepared this slideshow. So we're going to have to maybe go down to a different building to get their attention a little bit. But I do think of course. Well, the idea behind that was and I'm going to be really blunt about these two very beautiful little girls with showed up with cut sunflowers, and I said to them, you know, let's take a video of you laying the sunflowers in the driveway, and they were excited to do it, and their parents were excited to have them do it. And we knew that the Russians had destroyed all of the sunflowers that we'd ever planted. I mean, they come out at night and they rip up sunflowers, planted sunflowers, and, you know, so we knew they would destroy them. It never occurred to me that they would do it on the spot right in front of us. That was kind of, but yeah, one of the Ukrainian protesters who was there with us that day, Alexandra, had the presence of mind just to film the guy when he was doing it. And so, yeah, part of the goal of all of these operations is one of them is to get the images on the wall, and the other is to provoke the response on the, you know, that causes them to show who they are, whether it's shining a Z spotlight or whether it's doing something else. You know, the response is the message. And so here we thought we could bring images from a Ukrainian artist. We could make that visible to an international audience. We could raise awareness of you know, push in people's faces and do it on the Russian Cultural Center. If I just tweet these images, you know, they'll get some retweets. They don't get the same reaction. You put them on the Russian Cultural Center, people respond to them very differently.
Ben, I'd like to add into a lot of the you know, people who come out to join us at our special military operations. They're DC residents. They're, you know, people who live around the block, who are out, you know, walking their dog or riding their bike, who see what we're doing, and, you know, want to stop by, hang around, and show their support. And I think that they're, to Ben's point about provoking that frankly disgusting reaction, that there's something very profound that they're witnessing. A lot of people, myself included, who do live in DC, it's very disheartening, to say the absolute least, and quite frankly, it's scary to see, a lot of, these Russian quote-unquote diplomats who are literally, our neighbors acting in such a vile way in our own backyards. This is something that Ben glanced over before, that, the residents who live directly across the street from the Russian embassy have had to deal with quite extensively. So back last month, Ben was there planting sunflowers, and as he mentioned, they miraculously were ripped up multiple times. In addition, though, there are, people living on that same street who've had, their symbols of Ukrainian solidarity, their Ukrainian flags, their tridents vandalized, quite possibly by people who, find security within that compound right across the street. And so, the crux of what we're really trying to do here is be as invasive as possible without, breaking any laws or, presenting a real physical threat, And what's important is making that discomfort something that, the people inside of that compound feel, making that, very tangible and, ensuring that while they are fully, allowed to be within the United States and within the Russian mission, that doesn't mean they have to be comfortable. And as long as they are perpetrating war crimes, then there is no reason that they shouldn't.
All right, well, we are going to bounce as well because we have some more sites to hit. We may pop back in to give you guys an update, but I think the work of the NAFO fellows probably needs to be shown at some other locations this evening. Yeah, you got to get to the ambassador's house a little bit earlier because there are some residents down there who, if you're too loud, too late, get upset. So we're gonna, but we will be back, and thank you to you all. Indeed. All right.